Chair number 4 will speak first. So, the opening question, this is for you. If you so choose, you can stand right next to the white tape. That way Mark will be able to get your close-up of your face while you speak.
Okay.
So I'm going to start the timer, and this is your introduce yourself, say why you're running, what you want to do.
Got it.
Go.
Hi, my name's Donna Brack, and I am currently the prosecutor who's in charge of district court in the prosecutor's office. That's a training court. This is probably given to me based on many, many years as a prosecutor. I have been a prosecutor down in Los Angeles County. I've been a defense attorney, criminal defense attorney in Los Angeles County. I've worked in a civil office. I had my own office, and I was a court commissioner down in Los Angeles County. And most of that was doing criminal prosecution, but as a commissioner, I also handled civil cases and presided over them. I have been here since we moved up in 1999 to help assist my father on Orcas Island after my mom passed. And I started as a prosecutor. Only job I could get was with the city at the time. It's a very closed community for attorneys, I found out. And so I did that for a year. I switched over to the prosecutor's office for 2 years. And then Tom Seguin was elected as the prosecutor in Skagit, and he asked me to go down and be his chief criminal deputy.
20 seconds.
I did that. I tried a number of cases down there, serious felony cases, attempted murder, kidnapping, a number of child sex cases while I was there. I have the background to do any type of case. I've done any type of case, also as a defense attorney. So I am the one who has the most experience trying cases and the most experience in terms of training people to do this job.
Your time
Thank
is
you.
up. Thank you. Yeah, you can pass it down to Mr. Corcoran. Oh, it's going to move. The mic's going to move to the right. Okay. Yeah. So you're next.
So I'm going. Okay. Go ahead. Good afternoon or good evening. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate this. I love a chance to come out and meet my community, introduce myself. I probably shouldn't say this publicly, but it's been a long time since I've been in church. But it's good to be here. My name's Jesse Corkin, and I'm running for Whatcom County Prosecutor. I'm running to provide a new kind of leadership to our prosecuting attorney's office, a kind of leadership that's desperately needed right now. I want to provide leadership that imposes standards in our office, standards of prosecution, standards of resolution, and standards of how we conduct ourselves. And I intend to hold our office to account. We will measure those standards to see how we do in terms of holding ourselves to account. We can standardize the way we prosecute, and we can introduce efficiencies into the system. You know, I've had the privilege of practicing for almost 20 years now in Washington, and I've practiced in other prosecuting attorneys' offices. I've litigated in counties across this state, and I've had the opportunity to see offices where they do things well, where processes work to serve the community. We can do that here in Whatcom County. Whatcom County is a fantastic place to live and work, and this community deserves better from the prosecutor's office, and I intend to deliver that in my administration. Efficient prosecution that serves the needs and the values of this community. I look forward to earning your vote. Thank you.
Yep. Hello, my name is Eric Sigmar. I'm the Chief Criminal Deputy Prosecutor at the Whatcom County Prosecutor's Office. I've been the Chief Criminal Deputy Prosecutor for over 7.5 years. And in that capacity, I supervise the felony attorneys who handle our most serious cases. And I myself have tried and handled the most significant and serious cases in Whatcom County's history with a great deal of success. And I am running for prosecutor because I believe this community deserves someone on the inside who has everyone's best interest at heart, someone with the requisite knowledge and experience to get the job done, someone who will look out for victims, who will stand up for the community, who will keep people safe, and also who will look out for the people who are involved or in some cases ensnared by the criminal justice system. And what I mean is giving them every opportunity to restore and rehabilitate. And that's what we've done at the Whatcom County Prosecutor's Office. I'm proud that I was among the leaders, and there may be some among us here in this building, that brought the LEAD program, Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion, to Whatcom County, where we pick people up who've hit rock bottom and provide them with intensive case management and services so that they can restore and recover and reintegrate into society as healthy individuals. And we respect them as a community, and that's a good thing. And it turns out that they're 80% less likely to reoffend when we do that. And we would like to apply that same model to the new behavioral care center that you, the taxpayers, have voted for.
Your time is up.
Hi, I'm Ryan Swinburns, and thank you all for being here. I've been an attorney now 27 years. I'm the lone candidate from outside the prosecutor's office because I do think we need a new type of leadership in that office. In my 27 years, I've spent 22 of it in private practice, leading my own office with multiple attorneys. I've had an opportunity over 24 of those years to be a criminal defense attorney. I also was a prosecutor for 5 of those years. So if you're doing the math, it's not adding up. 2 of those years, I was a prosecutor and defense attorney at the same time for different jurisdictions. So I've been a prosecutor, I've been a defense attorney, and I've also had 8 years of civil experience representing 2 separate counties, handling county council, handling the auditor's office, planning commission, all of those things. So as far as experience goes, I check all the boxes when it comes to what the prosecutor needs. But what this prosecutor's office really needs is new leadership. And it takes mentorship and really teaching the attorneys how to do their job. It can't come just from the top. It has to be started at the bottom and work its way up. And that's been a failing so far of the office and the past administrations. So when we're talking about new type of leadership, I believe it comes from outside that office, not from within. Thank you.
You're going to stay in the hot seat. So the first question is about hiring and retention. So the office has had trouble retaining talented prosecutors. What changes would you make to hiring, training, and performance standards to rebuild and retain talent? And do you intend to carry a caseload yourself or stay in a management role?
As I alluded to in my opening, this does take and require mentorship and leadership. The retention is directly connected to that. In the last 3.5 to 4 years, they've lost 17 felony prosecutors. That is an unattainable or unsustainable attrition rate. What we need are the people coming into the office in district court to actually learn how to try cases, how to review cases, how to win cases. The win rates are substandard. They are below what the prosecutor's office should be doing to keep you safe in the community. That starts with leadership in district court. It continues into superior court, where those attorneys know how to do those things, how to try a case, how to win a case. The prosecutor's office... Keep going. Okay, throwing me off. The prosecutor's office does attract prosecutors. They want to wear the white hat. The problem is our prosecutor's office doesn't keep them. What they do is they're thrown into the deep end and left to figure it out for themselves. Leadership is not in court every day. I am in court every single day. I carry a full felony caseload. I'm handling 150 felony cases each year, and I'm managing an office with the county in the conflict office, which is basically a second public defender's office.
We're going to ask you to wrap it up. That was about 1.5 minutes. It's
Okay.
working again.
All right.
Yeah. This is why I wouldn't let Kevin touch it. It's because only I know how to use this. Donna, you're next.
Thank you. A couple things. I think that the retention of prosecutors as felony prosecutors, yet you want to ask yourself, where'd they go? Where'd they go? Well, a couple of them are judges. A couple of them are Superior Court commissioners, Superior Court judges. There are people who have left to go into their own practice or practice with their dad, as one person did. There are a lot of people who have filled in civil. If civil lawyers retire, which is kind of where you go, you start in district court and you go to felony land and then civil to rest after you've been in felony land. And if you retire, then a person from felonies usually is plucked because they're ready to go into the civil side. So this is all like a conveyor belt going up. They're not just leaving. 14, I counted, left for reasons that supported their family or supported what they were doing in the office. So the process of going from district court to felony court is one, because district court is training, and that's what I'm in charge of right now. But I can only train them as long as they're there before they're plucked out and sent to felonies. And I know that it's horrible for a lot of them to do that, but that's been the nature of COVID and the situations we've been in for a long time. Thank you.
Yeah, this is an issue that's been affecting our office for some time now. And, you know, it's twofold. One, it's a recruitment issue. We really need to recruit the best possible attorneys we can to come work here. And the reality is, if you're coming out of law school and you want to litigate, you want to try cases, you go to the prosecutor's office or you go to the public defender's office. That's where you're going to try cases. You don't go into civil to learn how to litigate. And so people want to come here. They want to come and do this work, but they deserve to be supported, mentored, and trained appropriately so they can be prepared to do the work of felony attorneys when they get to that next level. You know, like I said when I opened, that I had the privilege of working in other offices where they did proper support and mentorship. I've been in offices where my supervisor, when I was a young attorney, came into the courtroom with me. Not only did they teach me how to move evidence about the courtroom, they taught me how to properly try a case, but also how to properly negotiate a case, how to properly manage a caseload, so I could actually handle the huge work assignment that is being a deputy prosecuting attorney. So it is more than trying cases. It is about teaching them how to be professionals. The other part of this is you got to build a culture where people want to work. This is really meaningful, important work, and it's hard work, and it's thankless. But you get support from that if you feel valued in your work environment. If you create an environment where your attorneys feel supported, they feel inspired, they feel listened to, then you're going to increase your retention rate, and that's something that has to happen at our office. Thank you.
If you were to Google prosecutor vacancy crisis, you would find that it's a national epidemic coast to coast. It is a huge problem. So larger jurisdictions and larger cities are facing vacancy rates of 25 to 33%. And it's never been that high in Whatcom County. And I'm proud to announce that now we are fully staffed with attorneys for the first time since I arrived on scene 10 years ago. And not only that, but we have more women attorneys than men attorneys for the first time in Whatcom County's known history, and that goes back to Dave McEachran 52 years ago. So that is a remarkable statement of success and leadership, that amidst the prosecutor vacancy crisis, we are now fully staffed at the Whatcom County Prosecutor's Office. We are doing very well, and we are succeeding, and we are indeed winning cases. The timer's off. We'll see how far. Okay. So 30 seconds. We looked at the data in lieu of some of the complaints, and in Superior Court, where we handle our most serious cases, 22 trials in a little over 2 years, so 2+ years. Only 4 straight acquittals and 18 convictions came out of those trials. That is another mark of success and an example of success. So don't be misled. We're doing quite well at the prosecutor's office.
Still you.
You're in the hot seat.
Okay. Hello?
The county jail has been a subject of great controversy recently. Despite it not being the prosecutor's direct purview, our membership would love to know your views on how to divide the limited amount of funds between beds for those being incarcerated and behavioral health services.
Sure. I drafted a letter that I think is going to be public, which I did personally before I filed for this job, that pledged that we would support the new jail only if it included therapeutic services in the jail so that people who are in custody can receive treatment for substance use disorder as well as mental health issues. So they're not held in deplorable conditions like 23-1, which happens now. It's very unfortunate. I also pledge support for a behavioral care center, and I'll say now, and I'll say it loudly, that I say we, the current administration, myself included, do not support a behavioral care center that is carceral. It will be separate from the jail, and it will host people in a therapeutic setting who are recovering. And it will support both services that will heal people in terms of substance use disorder and also mental health. And the idea is, and I've been part of the work group to develop a program to divert people out of the new jail into the future behavioral care center. Once they stabilize in the jail, they can be moved to the behavioral care center where they can continue to receive treatment. But really the golden goose is to divert them out at the soonest opportunity so that they don't place a burden on precious resources. And we are going to be cut this next year at the Whatcom County Prosecutor's Office. And so those resources will be even more precious down the road.
Certainly we need a new jail. There's no question about that. The public has voted on that and resoundingly said, yes, we need funding for a new jail. We also in Whatcom County have a severe need for additional behavioral health services. We are lacking, I believe, behind other counties in that capacity. It needs to be attached to some of this funding that is going toward the jail. But what really needs to happen is there needs to be better recognition of the individuals that need mental health services rather than going to the jail. And that's a huge gap that we have right now in the county. So resources from the prosecutor's office need to be dedicated to identifying those individuals that need services before sitting in jail for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and figuring out what to do. Does a behavioral health portion of the jail get to that? It does to a degree, but it really comes to the prosecutor's office for recognizing who needs those services rather than just being prosecuted. That is the piece that I think doesn't get talked about enough. And I think the prosecutor, the elected prosecutor, needs to be the face of that push. They need to be the face of the push, not only with regard to the jail and behavioral health services associated with the jail, but in developing better services on the back end when people are done with their cases. I handle recovery court and mental health court through the conflict office, and so many times people graduate and then they're left to their own device. We need better back end services as well. Still figuring it out.
Yes. So I've also been to a lot of the seminars and speeches and meetings that have been held about the jail and services. District court has always been a court where alternative sentencing is viewed. It is supported, whether it's started with LEAD. I remember when LEAD first started, and I would go through the new cases and fill out the LEAD referral form and go and submit them to Mr. Sigmar at his office to be processed. So that was a big thing. Also, we didn't really do drug court, which is now recovery court, because that was kept for felonies. But there have been a number of other mental health court, family court that have developed over time that are used. In fact, used to where they're exploding in terms of the population. They need more space, they need more time. All of those things need to be used. Always been a proponent of alternative sentencing. Where the jail comes, it's very clear that you do need a jail that has jail cells. There are just people, I remember I was at a meeting with Maya Vanyo and Stark Fallis, run the public defender's office. They said, no, you have to have a jail that will house people who are dangerous. So that is part of it, you have to have that. But I also want to see that there's a part of the jail that has all of the services, including a wonderful detox facility, which we have been meaning to have and get for years as part of the jail. Thank you. Okay.
Mic's working now. Yeah.
I'm going to sit here, and when there's 15 seconds, I'm going to hold up the sign. How's that? You don't have to take those out anymore.
Okay. The responsibility of the elected position, of any elected official, is to deliver on the will of your constituents, right? I mean, that's what an elected official should be doing. My job is to deliver on the will of this community. This is a county-wide election, and what this county has said when they supported the new jail, what they said that we will support the new jail only if it has behavioral care center alternatives. So behavioral care center and behavioral care alternatives, whether that be treatment, mental health treatment, substance abuse treatment, whatever these incarceration alternatives are, they have to be prioritized. They cannot be just another option. There has to be a priority to divert these individuals into these alternatives. That's how we're going to effectively reduce our incarceration system. That's what this community wants. Right? This community wants incarceration alternatives. They want treatment programs for the individuals that are in this community. They do not want a jail that is overflowing and overloaded with individuals. And that costs us extensively as taxpayers, right? We bear the burden of these individuals sitting in our custody for as long as they are. And these incarceration alternatives can do a lot to release that, or to relieve that. So it has to be a priority of the administration. It will be a priority of my administration to not only lean into the incarceration alternatives that we have, but also to work with our community partners to develop new programs like a community court, where there's a lot of support for that here in Whatcom County. Thank you. Oh, I go again. Yeah.
There we go.
I got it.
Good job. Please explain your views and experience with diversion programs like therapeutic courts and drug court, mental health court, that are designed to act as alternatives to incarceration. The public hears a lot about these programs, and we would like to hear in detail how you've interacted with them and your plans for them for criminal justice in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've interacted with them in a number of ways. I mean, one, as I talked about before, I've been a defense attorney, and so I've had clients who I've put through these programs before. But most importantly, I've interacted with these programs here on a local level. When I was in the criminal division, so I didn't get to all details in my bio, but for purposes of my work here at the prosecutor's office, I spent 5 years in our criminal division. I've now spent the last 2+ in our civil division here. So as in our criminal division, I definitely had individuals who we put into these treatment programs. There's a variety of treatment programs we have. We have mental health court. We have recovery court. Recovery court used to be called drug court. They changed that name to recovery court. But these are programs where you've been charged with a crime. You will go into that program with your charge pending, and then if you are able to meet the conditions of that program, you may get a reduction. You may even get that crime dismissed. Right. So those are certain programs that we have. We also have other programs where you can divert somebody before they go into, before they're charged. You can do something like pre-charging diversion, where you can give somebody a treatment alternative prior to them charging, which that actually does a lot to reduce the burden on the justice system, because now we haven't charged that individual, we haven't created that file, we haven't burdened the system with that yet, we have kept them entirely out of the system, right? And the other thing we can do is community court, which I know only got 15 seconds left, so I won't get into that, but I have gone and seen their model of that in Skagit County, and it has really profound impacts.
I'm a big proponent of diversion programs, and I've helped start diversion programs and launch diversion programs, including the LEAD program, which we brought over after King County's example. We were one of the first counties and truly leaders in the state of Washington to bring LEAD to Whatcom County. As I said before, a reduction in recidivism upwards of 80% or more. And we tend to not think about what incarceration does to the individual. I know a lot of people here, progressives, probably do, but as a community as a whole, we're not considering exactly what it does. And it does harm. It does oftentimes more harm than good, and it does particular harm to someone who's suffering from mental illness or has a significant behavioral health disorder. And those people should be out of the jail and into treatment. That's what we should be doing. I just started a new program with Maya Vanyu, who's my counterpart at the Public Defender in Public Health. It's called ANCHOR, and that's an acronym, and I'm not going to be able to remember what every letter stands for, but you can look it up. It is a program that will get people out. It's sort of an intermediate diversion. And so you have a lower level diversion, like LEAD diversion, and then you have upper level sentencing alternatives, which some of my colleagues have mentioned. In between, there's this gap, and we're filling the gap with this new ANCHOR diversion. So good news, and it's going to be the predecessor, I think, to the diversion to the behavioral care center.
As I stated in my last answer, I've been a part of recovery court and mental health court as part of the conflict office, not just referring people there that are clients, but actually participating in staffing and participating in the actual weekly courtroom process. And what that's given me an opportunity to see is the benefits of therapeutic court, but it also has given me the opportunity to see where there's some gaps. And where there's gaps right now, and this needs to be fixed, and it will be once I'm elected prosecutor, is right now we have 20 unused slots in recovery court. That means the gateway to get into recovery court is too restrictive. The gatekeepers for each program are the prosecutors. They, before the treatment team gets to take a look at the case, before anybody's screened, a prosecutor makes a determination if they're going to get in or not. I think that gateway needs to be expanded. The other thing, when we're talking about equality to those getting to participate, we have exactly 0 non-English speaking people in either program. So we need to bridge that gap, make it equitable for all parties. And also, under my, when I'm elected, I would add a third court, which is Veterans Court, which I've been a part of in another jurisdiction and is a fantastic program. So we need to expand the therapeutic courts, but we need to make them better and get more people in. Thank you.
So not just because I'm old, but that is a factor in having been exposed to drug court in 1993 or 4. I was sitting as a commissioner in Glendale, California, and the judges came into my chambers and asked if I was interested in going to the first drug court meeting in the state of California. It was developed in Florida, and a team was coming to California to teach judges, commissioners, all about drug court and how successful it was. I was told that they didn't want to go, but they were nominating me to go to this meeting because I believed in that stuff. And so I did, firmly did, and have my whole life probably, if I look back at it, in terms of giving people another chance in rehabilitation. I went to that meeting. It was at Bolt Hall in Berkeley. It was the best week I've ever spent of my life. Everything that they talked about rang true. It was perfect. When I went back to court, though, we didn't have that in California. But up here, when I got up here, you did have drug court. When I went to Skagit, I told Tom Seguin, I want to do all 4 years of drug court, being the prosecutor in drug court. I went to experience the entire time, and I did that. And I had a wonderful experience. Not too long ago, a guy came up to me at the dealership and said, "Do you remember me?" And I said, I don't. And he goes, "You're the one who, on the 4th time I screwed up, spoke for me and allowed me to remain in drug court, and I've been successful ever since." So that's what it's about. Thank you. Oh, I stay. Oh, no, I turn to stay. I didn't get that whole thing. Anyway.
It's a battle. We understand. I would
Okay.
do a terrible job of taking that instruction. So next one's for you. So with current caseloads as high as they are for the prosecutor's office, how would you manage prosecutorial discretion and charging decisions? And what is your view on having prosecuting attorneys specialize in different types of crime?
I'll take the last part of that first. I have been a part of offices where prosecutors specialize, and there are certain types of crimes that I think it's really helpful. One is sex assault. I think it's extremely helpful to have people trained in that area, men and women. Down in Los Angeles, you might remember Lance Ito. He was the O.J. Simpson judge. He was in the sex assault team for Los Angeles County, where they specialized, and they had been doing that for a long time. They're very intense cases, and there's a lot of nuances in those cases, and their victims have been traumatized, so it does take that kind of, I think, intensity and having prosecutors who are well-trained. So certain cases are ripe for that, and I believe in those. Child sex cases, I also believe in that they should have prosecutors who are highly trained. It's difficult to specialize when you're in a smaller office. I think that our office here in Whatcom County should be specializing in those types of cases, sex assault cases. The rest of the cases, everyone pretty much has an idea of how to put those on, and they can get additional help from those of us who have actually tried those cases. The last third strike case here in this county was done by me, and that was in 2015. And that was a serious assault and had DNA and all sorts of things. But we really haven't had that type of serious case in a long time. Thank you.
Okay, so the question was, do you mind reading it again?
I do not. With current caseloads high for the prosecutor's office, how would you manage prosecutorial discretion and charging decisions, and what is your view in having the attorneys specialize in different types of crimes?
Yeah, thank you. Okay, this is actually a pretty significant part of our platform. So prosecutorial discretion is the most significant power I will have as an elected. It is an incredible power. We get to decide what's charged, when it's charged, how it's resolved. That all resides within the power of the prosecuting attorney's office. And that discretion gets passed on to your deputy prosecutors. They have discretion in making their filing decisions, their charging decisions, their resolution decisions. And so one thing you have to do is you have to standardize how you do things. One thing that our office would really benefit from is some standardization in terms of prosecution, how we charge things, what we charge, and how it's resolved. And many other offices do that. It adds a lot of efficiencies into the system. It helps reduce your caseload, it helps move cases along, and it provides organization for your attorneys and support for your attorneys. So standardization is really important in terms of adding efficiencies into what we do. The other component of that is specialization, exactly what Andrew's talked about. Specialization is key. Even in an office as small as ours, it really adds efficiencies into the system. Even if your unit is only 1 or 2 attorneys, many of the offenses that we prosecute are very specialized. They come from specialized areas of the law, specialized statutes that apply to them, specialized case law, and you want attorneys that develop expertise in that. From some of the other lower-level non-violent crimes, you can develop higher caseloads for attorneys that specialize in that and really introduce efficiencies into your system to reduce the time it takes us to try a case. Thank you.
Yeah, prosecutor discretion is key. Prosecutor discretion is exercised now by Eric Ritchie to prevent us from prosecuting certain crimes involving poverty, such as driving while license suspended third cases. We no longer prosecute standalone driving while license suspended thirds. As the prosecutor, I would roll back prosecution of simple possession cases unless there's some other aggravating factor. As to the caseloads, if they reduce, then that enables the individual prosecutor to look at the defendant more holistically and consider things like mitigation packages incoming from the public defender's office. And the caseloads have been reducing drastically due to leadership and the changes that we've implemented at the Whatcom County Prosecutor's Office. At the height of COVID, we had caseloads, 250 active felony cases per Superior Court prosecutor, and that has now dropped to 128 most recently, and that's late-breaking news. We've added prosecutors to Superior Court, and that's where the most serious cases are charged to ease those burdens. So I'm proud of the work we've done at the Whatcom County Prosecutor's Office and look forward to keeping it up.
So I'm in a unique position out of the 4 candidates. I'm the only one who's actually in court every single day. I'm in Superior Court every day. I see what the attrition has done to the office, and when you're talking about specialization, what you need to do is you need to retain the attorneys if you're going to specialize. So the first step is actually mentoring, keeping the people in the office. Currently, we have an individual who's going to be a fantastic attorney who is in charge with task force, which is all the drug operations, and is my understanding making all the charging decisions also in district court. That's a heavy burden to put on somebody that has 1 year experience as an attorney. What we need to do is put people in positions where they can be successful, knowing who's got a passion for what, and that takes teamwork, that takes buy-in by the team, that takes leadership. It takes people that are in a leadership position, being in the trenches, knowing what's happening in court day in and day out. Now, the elected can't be in court every single day, but his leadership or her leadership team can be, and they should be. As far as specialization, there's certainly some areas that need that specialization. Task force is a perfect example because they need to have that relationship with the officers that handle that. So there is times for that, but it starts with fixing the attrition problem before you can even have the conversation about specialization.
You can stay up there. A quick interlude at this time. All 4 of these people came up and joked to me that they're attorneys and they're going to talk over the time limit, ha ha ha. I have seen in my life probably over 100 on television and live political events. Best I've ever seen for stopping on time. Big hand, yeah, thank you. 100% true. All the politicians, career politicians always talk over. It's terrible. You all are doing great.
It's not just because you have a big ugly guy over
Said thank you. I just like the colors, man. I don't. It's fine. Blame Eamon Collins. Everyone blame Eamon Collins for the timer. It's his. So, yeah, when you're voting, just remember. He's gonna love that I said that. Okay, sorry. Serious face. Mr. Swinburne.
Yes.
What, if any, experience do you have using restorative justice as a tool in your practice? And what place do you see for that concept were you to be elected prosecutor?
I think anytime you are a defense attorney, you are implementing some of the tools required for restorative justice. You're dealing with the defendant, and I've dealt with indigent defense for 24 years. I've always had a part of my practice as indigent defense. What that takes is it takes the ability to bridge the gap between the defendant and what the victim is facing, and find ways to, if you can do it outside of the criminal realm, the better. I think that there's an opportunity that's being missed right now. I think that there can be better service regarding restorative justice. It can be implemented in different ways. Stipulated orders of continuance are one way to make that happen. I know the prosecutor's office frowns upon those right now, but I think that's a way that you can get the tools and a vehicle where you can accomplish some of the goals of restorative justice, which is handle it without a conviction if you can, and put something where the parties get to a happy medium and are able to resolve the case that way. I think there are opportunities that are being missed right now that we can implement. I guess that's it.
So about a month and a half ago, I was out in the lunch area on the second floor, and there was an older woman and probably a mid-30s gentleman and another woman who was probably in her 40s. And they were all yelling at each other. And you couldn't hear anything as to what anyone was saying. And I walked up to them and asked what they were doing. And they explained they'd just been to court. And one man was a victim of the woman's son, so his niece, and then the victim's mother was there. And I spent about 2.5 hours with them. They got quiet, they started to listen to each other, and the minute it would start to erupt, I'd try and calm them down and say, just talk to each other. Just talk to each other about what's going on in your lives. So over that 2.5 hour period, they actually all quieted down, started listening, and talking to each other. They walked out hugging each other and happy about what happened. I don't know their names or what case they're on, but that was restorative justice. So I am in full agreement with all of that, and sometimes it just takes a little time. I'd like to start a program in the office where you can bring in families like that. I've done it a couple times. It wasn't successful, but have it actually set up, and it'll work that way. Thank you.
Yeah, I think restorative justice is smart justice, right? We have information available to us. We have data available to us that we can use. And as we've talked about already here today, this community supports these kinds of programs. They support incarceration alternatives. They support diversion programs. But the restorative justice has to be smart justice in the sense that it's delivering a result that's best for the community. And that has to take everybody into account, right? Has to take the accused into account, has to take the victim into account, and has to take the community needs into account. And I think it has to be prioritized by the elected prosecutor. We don't have all the control on that, but we are a community partner, along with the courts, along with law enforcement, along with our defense agencies, our public defenders, and our private defense attorneys. We are all part of the same system, and they all have to work together if you're going to deliver meaningful restorative justice alternatives for this community. And that's what really matters, is community relationships. Do you have the relationships with these other agencies to build these programs, to make sure these programs are effective for your community? Because the appetite is certainly here and will certainly be part of my administration. Thank you.
So restorative justice is a collaborative approach to the criminal justice system and involves restoring people or healing people. And there's an individual component and sort of a hybrid component and then a communal component. And in the Whatcom County Prosecutor's Office and in our local criminal justice system, an example of the individual component would be MRT, or moral recognition therapy, which is frequently a requirement when someone is sentenced that requires the offender to consider what steps led to the bad decision-making that caused harm, and then how to sort of come to terms with how much harm they've caused and try and make amends. And it's also about making the victim or society whole. An example of a more hybrid approach would be recovery court, where the community is coming together with the offender in order to address harm, and they receive treatment or therapy to address the harm, and then we get to literally rip up their criminal cases when they're done and they've completed the program, and they move on to things like being mothers, which I just witnessed the other day at a recovery court graduation. It's a great thing. What we haven't yet done is the all three, with the community and the victim, and we have to be very careful when we do that. Eric Ritchie just went to a training with another individual who I recognize in the room. I just discussed that with her over coffee, and we are starting to build the foundation for that, but we have to do it very carefully because we want to make sure the victim is not coerced into it and that it's completely voluntary and safe.
Stay. Thank you. I'm just going to help you now. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're catching on about the same rate that Michael Shepard and Eamon Collins did. First answer for you on this one. So walk us through your philosophy on plea bargaining. So when do you prioritize a plea deal versus taking a case to trial? What types of cases do you think are currently over-prosecuted or under-prosecuted in Whatcom County?
Oh boy, this is not one I anticipated or have thought of before this. Plea bargaining, there's actually a Supreme Court case that talks about it. It's integral to the system, and without plea bargaining, the system would bog down and grind to a halt. So it is absolutely necessary. We couldn't get by without it. And it's part of a restorative process, right? I mean, it's people coming together and coming up with a solution. And I think we try and plea bargain most every case. There's usually an option to plea bargain a case. I don't like the offer plead as charged. It should be something a little bit less that we can live with, so we're not traumatizing juries and wasting a lot of time. I guess there are a few cases, murder cases, for instance, where we have towed the line and said, no, we're not going to plea bargain that case. One example would be the Rigoberto Galvan case that I prosecuted, which was an aggravated murder case, but that's the exception to the rule. We do have plea and disposition standards that apply to younger attorneys in our office in district court. As to Superior Court, we ask our attorneys to meet with us anytime it's a serious felony, a Class A felony, or a sexual assault case, and we try and work collaboratively on the best solution that meets all the needs of the criminal justice system, both the victim and the community, considering ongoing safety, and also addresses potentially prior wrongs by way of the offender's criminal history, and so on.
If you need to repeat at any time of the questions, just ask.
One of the big issues we have right now is the backlog of cases, and part of that is based on the fact that not enough cases are getting resolved in a timely fashion. If I'm elected prosecutor, I'm going to make it an impetus that every discovery packet, when the police report gets sent over to defense, goes with an offer. Then you know that the prosecutor's handling the case is familiar with the case enough to send an offer and cultivate one. But that takes the leadership, it takes the teaching, it takes the attorneys to understand how to charge a case and what to charge. Only then can you really get to the point where you're getting a meaningful plea bargain. And I push back on the fact that you don't always have a plea as charged. I think if you're always peeling back from what you're charging too high. You are charging too much. And so you're always peeling back in an offer. That tells you that the charging decision at the beginning is not equitable. Every case, you can't put it into a box. Every case is different. It depends on the voice. You can't say this case should be pled out all the time and this one shouldn't. It takes input from the victim. It takes input from the witnesses. It takes an evaluation by the prosecutor who's handling the case to understand what they need to prove at trial. The prosecutor holds all the cards when it comes to that. They either make a deal that's going to resolve the case if they can't prove it, or they go to trial. But the victim's input is integral to that.
Plea bargaining, you have to have it. We have too many cases to not have it. But I think when you send out an offer right at the beginning, maybe you don't have all the facts. So if you're waiting for police reports, something like that, you don't send out an offer right at the beginning. If the defense accepts an offer that you send out right at the beginning, then that's a contract, that's an agreement. So you can't turn around and change it. I think what happens right now is works pretty well, because you send out an offer when you think you have all the reports, all the facts. And if it's a victim crime, you send out an offer after you've talked to the victim. Because a lot of times, police reports don't include all of the things, because they'd be, really long, that happened in a case. You should know those things by talking to a victim. So plea bargaining in any type of victim case, an armed robbery, a sexual assault, a home invasion, a burglary, you should have talked to the victim. So I think it would not work so well for victims if we just sent an offer out at the very beginning and found out a whole bunch of other things happened and we can't take our offer back. So you have to be circumspect. You have to have a number of cases that you've used, you've tried, you've made offers, and sometimes the defense attorneys talk to them. They have things to tell you about the case. And then you can look at those things, investigate them, and they may lead to a defense, and you don't want to have a plea at all. Thank you.
Yeah, what we're really talking about is resource management, being efficient with our resources, right? That's why plea bargaining is something that's essential to what we do. As I mentioned a moment ago, part of what we're training our attorneys on, our young attorneys, are how to properly manage a caseload, how to evaluate a case for its evidentiary value, how to analyze which cases should go to trial and which cases should get resolved through some kind of plea. And to be honest, only about 5% of your cases should be going to trial. We don't have the time and resources to try those cases, and they should be resolved by plea. The other big part of this is when somebody enters a plea of guilty, they give up their right to appeal. That means that case is not getting appealed, it's not going to the Court of Appeals. We are not expending more resources on that. You bring finality to the situation when you get to plea. So plea bargaining is a huge part of what we do. Our relationships with the defense attorneys are integral in this, and training our attorneys on how to effectively do this is an imperative part of their job. It is how we should effectively manage our caseloads, manage our resources, move cases through the system, and we have the information to identify which cases should be tried. And we can identify those because there are cases where you're just not going to reach a resolution on, and you're going to have to take that to trial, and that's fine. But many of these cases we should be resolving through negotiated resolution. Thank you.
What do you see as the biggest driver or drivers of crime in Whatcom County, like the root causes? And what, if anything, can the prosecutor's office do to be a part of resolving those issues?
Yeah, this is a tough one because many of the drivers here are things that kind of fall outside the purview of the prosecutor's office. So you're talking about what are the key drivers for crime in Whatcom County. You're talking about substance abuse. you're talking about mental health, and you're talking about those who are experiencing homelessness or houselessness. You know, the affordability issue is huge right now. It's driving a lot of people to a situation where they're living unhoused. That drives them to coping mechanisms, right? Whether that be substance abuse or maybe mental health issues. And those are things that we can't directly address necessarily by charging, but we can be part of the answer to this problem, right? One of the things I talk about a lot on the campaign trail is what an important role this is being one of many community leaders, right? As the elected prosecutor, I'm not gonna have all the solutions, but I'm gonna be working with our executive, I'm gonna be working with our county council, I'll be working with law enforcement, other community leaders to provide solutions to these issues. You know, because these issues, these drivers do exist, and you have to work with your community partners to provide solutions to them. So when it comes to the prosecutor's office, we've talked about many of them. Can we divert some of these folks into our incarceration alternatives? Can we put them into a pre-charging diversion program? Can they get support from our community health partners to address some of the underlying issues that are driving them to make these decisions? It's really you know, can we provide them a wraparound services and full support? You know, those are the things that are going to address the issue from our office. Thank you.
Substance use disorder, behavioral health, mental health issues all contribute and drive criminal behavior. Also, frankly, poverty, adverse childhood experiences, all of that. And how do we address that? Well, I mean, that's almost beyond, as Jesse said, the purview of the prosecutor, but we can and we have with programs like LEAD that get to people before they commit another crime and try and address those underlying issues in a healthy way. And you, the voters, thank you, have voted for a behavioral care center that will be non-carceral, that will be therapeutic in a therapeutic setting, and that will enable us to divert people out of the jail. Most people don't know that the people that go into the jail, a third of them are out within 24 hours. How many people knew that? And the mean is about 2 days. So really the golden goose is to, as soon as they encounter the jail, because most of them are gonna get out anyways, is to get them out and get them into treatment. And that is a perfect opportunity to intercept them and give them treatment and really interject in that behavior and address the behavior. And once we have a behavioral care center, we can immediately divert people out of the jail to the behavioral care center where they can immediately receive treatment. And if they're not able to receive treatment because they abscond, then we can get a warrant for them and we can try again because we know people stumble in recovery, or we can eventually prosecute them conventionally if necessary.
I think the number one driver is substance abuse. But what's been talked about so far is treating the symptom and not the cause. And so I think as prosecutor, there needs to be a much heavier hand when it comes to drug dealers, the people bringing the poison into our county, into our native tribes. There needs to be an additional hammer for the ones who are going to deal drugs in this county. Part of being a prosecutor and law enforcement is deterrent. There needs to be a deterrent for the ones who choose to sell drugs to our kids, to our native neighbors, and to our community themselves. But that's not exclusive. There also needs to be better opportunities for the ones suffering from addiction and mental health. And again, it goes to what we have in place is good, but it's not adequate enough. There needs to be better opportunity for the people that truly want to address their addiction or have an opportunity to address mental health. That takes a bigger gateway into the therapeutic programs that we have. We need to expand those programs. So resources need to go to the treating those that are the afflicted, but we also need to make sure that the people who are dealing drugs in this county know the reputation of Whatcom County is don't do it in our county. That's important.
So I had as an assignment being the drug task force prosecutor for a number of years, about 5 years. And I can tell you that what the task force at least did then was target very high-level drug traffickers. We had some cartel cases at the time, and that worked out a certain way. A lot of those prosecutions went federally, And so we didn't, as a local community, have those trials. We did have some trials, though, that were local, and it's not, well, it's probably depressing to think that not much has changed since I was the Drug Task Force prosecutor. It still seems to be handled the same way. I agree that it is drugs that's driving a lot of the crime in our county, but I also think that we need more, like, it'd be great to have a hospital up here, wouldn't it? You know, where they could go in and get treatment, and we had a fully functioning hospital. They didn't have to go to other places for the, you know, ability to do that. Being close to family, I think family being connected to their loved ones when they're going through something like that is very important. But we don't seem to have those. So I think looking at the community that could help us, that's what would be helpful, is that there was a structure that we could send people to, their families could still be involved, and then they could be successful when they're released. Thank you. Stay.
The random number generator selected you to go first for the 9th question. So,
The last question?
Twist of fate. This is our last question. And then I understand that people have questions they wish would have been asked. Here are your candidates to ask those questions to. They replied to my emails swiftly. If you have something that did not get asked, please ask them. That's their jobs, to field their questions. Or you can join the Democracy and Elections team and help me. Yeah? Oh, yeah. Quick plug. Ms. Brack, the last question. It's a real burner. ICE and other federal agents are violating the laws of Washington State. Minnesota and Colorado are currently prosecuting ICE agents, and Cook County, Illinois, has implemented a protocol to prosecute ICE agents for on-duty use of force incidents. In what circumstance would you prosecute an ICE agent for violations of state law or county law?
Wow, yeah. If I could find them, probably is what you mean. But I would imagine that it's like the cases that you see on the news, where the police have overreacted, been brutal to someone, and it gets filmed. The ICE officers who are coming here, they're being filmed. There are a lot of people out there watching what's happening, watching the courthouse, watching to see if they're, picking up people as they're going to court or checking on them. I think if someone commits a crime, regardless of their occupation, and we have proof that they committed that crime, we should charge them with that crime. Everyone is equal under the law. They're not any different. They may be pardoned earlier than the rest of us would be if we were convicted of something, but for the most part, I don't see any distinction between the two. A bad law enforcement officer, someone who isn't following the law, is a bad law enforcement officer. They should be charged.
Yeah, thank you. This question does come up every once in a while, and law enforcement, they're held to the same standards as everybody else is. If you violate the law, then our job is to hold them accountable. And I know a lot of folks have made issues about, well, they have, immunities related to their law enforcement duties and whatnot. But you guys have seen the videos that we've seen, right? These are not acts that are done in good faith, right? These are acts that are malicious in nature that clearly violate the law. And so our job as elected officials is to stand up and enforce the law, whether it's comfortable for us or not, right? Whether it's popular or not. That is our job. It's our job to hold people accountable, even if if we get pushback on that. And I have to tell you that this conduct on behalf of ICE is unconscionable. It's like nothing we've ever seen. And we've had personal experiences. My wife is here today. Our daughter, who's 11 years old, saw in our neighborhood somebody taken out of their delivery vehicle that they were driving, windows smashed, and that driver removed in a neighborhood that my daughter was playing with kids in. Here in our community. So these are not things that are happening only in Minnesota and only in other jurisdictions. They're happening right here. And I suggest you elect a prosecutor who's going to hold them to account, and I promise to do that. Thank you.
What I'll say is that, as the next prosecutor, if I'm so lucky and privileged enough, that I would follow Washington law. And Washington law prevents civil arrests in and about the courthouse. And we also have General Rule 38 that is also applicable. And we also have other state laws. I'm thinking Washington Workers, well, there's the Courts Open to All Act, and then Keep Washington Workers Act as well, that prevents local authorities from sharing information or prosecutors from sharing information with ICE. And my expectation is all those laws would be followed, and I agree with my colleagues on this point. And what will happen is, if we allow this to continue, is it will have a quieting effect, a dampening effect on people who are really and truly vulnerable in our community. So potentially someone is subject to abuse and they're not able to get help because they're afraid that they're going to be taken away from their families and persecuted or prosecuted or removed from the country. We've seen that people have been removed completely unlawfully without just cause, and I absolutely don't support that. And it does have a profound effect on our, it is the prosecutor's duty to keep people safe, and it is a genuine community safety issue when people aren't able to show up for hearings and get no contact orders and participate in the court process.
From the beginning of my campaign, what I've been talking about is accountability. It starts with the prosecutor's office. They're charged with holding people accountable. How can they hold other people accountable if they can't hold themselves accountable? That accountability transfers to defendants. It transfers to every member of our community. Lady Justice is blind, and it should be implemented that way. So whether you're talking about an ICE agent, whether you're talking about a law enforcement officer, if they're breaking the law, they need to be prosecuted. That's a blanket statement. Now, beyond that, what we need is an opportunity for people to look at each case independently. And you have to ask yourself, if these unconscionable things are happening in our county right now, how come they're not being prosecuted? That's the question. It takes accountability. Our office right now, the prosecutor's office, is not exacting accountability on any level. That needs to change. That change comes from outside the office, not within the office. Thank you.
That's a wrap, folks. Huge round of applause for our candidates, please. Thank you. Thank you. You are released from service. Our next event is on the 23rd of July at 6 p.m. right here. Senator Liz Levitt will be here talking about Washington's public banking future. It's going to be a hot one. Thanks, everybody.